everybody, Riot Mort here, back with another patch rundown in 2025. It is patch TFT 13.4, which means it's the fourth patch of set 13. Sweet.
Excellent.
Love this naming convention. Makes it easy, which means we're about halfway through the set. A little more than half because of the break, but yeah. And we're coming off of what is probably one of the best metas of all time. A lot of things are playable, a lot of ways to go. If you believe TFT Academy, no S tier comp, things are good. Things are good. So the question is, what are we doing? And for what we're doing is mostly focused on quality of life things, very tiny balance increments, and then one change to traits we'll talk about. So let's dive right in and talk about the things we're doing so you can see what's going on at this point in the set.
A little louder, it's the max volume.
First off, on the system side, speaking of quality of life here, anytime you would have a PvE round, let's say you're at Krugs or Wolves or something like that, and you're like, I'm playing an AP comp, and you drop 2 swords or 3 cloaks, you're like, yay. And it's possible
wow,
for
that's
distribution
huge.
system. But we're trying to make that a little less painful. And so anytime you have a PvE round where you drop 2 of the same component, we'll also give you a Reforger.
Wow.
This is nice because if you drop 2 swords and you're playing Corki, you're like, sweet, 2 swords and a Reforger. Great. But if you're playing AP and you're like, 2 swords, get me out of here, you can Reforge 1 or both and try to hopefully help some of that variance just a little bit here. And so should be a nice quality of life feature.
That's a huge change.
All right, Augments.
In my opinion.
This is a small change, but generally the idea here is if you want, not if you want, but for Sentinel emblem to appear, you need at least 2 Sentinel in. The side effect of that is sometimes what'll happen is you might be playing like, I don't know, 6 Sniper, 2 Sentinel. And then you get to 4-2 and you see Sentinel emblem and you're like, I'm not taking Sentinel emblem. Very rarely would you ever take an emblem of a vertical that you only had 2 in.
Right.
So we've increased that. So basically at 4-2, for an emblem to show up, you have to have more of the trait.
Okay,
so
more than 2.
This should just make it so that the odds of seeing some emblem you're probably never going to take goes down. So should help with some dead choices.
Okay.
Anomalies. This is a nice
Thumbs
change where when we made the change for anomalies to repeat, what would happen is your first 12 would never repeat. And then all of a sudden your 13th one could be Repulsor. And then you re-roll. And then your 15th one could be Repulsor. And then you re-roll. And then your 17th one could be Repulsor.
Right.
That's terrible. Nobody wants that. That's
No.
an awful experience.
Yes.
So we've increased the gap for when you could see Repulsor again by 12. So if you hit Repulsor on your 13th, the soonest you'll see it is the 25th.
Yeah.
So this will increase the variety of things you see and ruin some of those low roll
Is
cases.
Repulsor that bad?
That being said, most players you should be picking by then anyway, but this will just help the quality of life in this situation.
W change.
And then finally, one more quality of life here. You can see quality is the theme here. If you ever get a Wandering Trainer with 3 emblems, or the Golem off the Ambessa encounter with 3 emblems, and you get 3 origins or 3 classes, it's pretty doomed. You get Sniper, Artillerist, Dominator, and you're like, great, what do I do? The fact that they have no connections is really painful. So in the cases where they have 3, it'll now be 1 origin, 1 class, and 1 random.
Okay.
In the case where you get 2, the Gold Wandering Trainer, it's still full random. You can still get 2 of the same.
Okay.
That's not as bad. But when it's 3, it's pretty painful. So should help make these a little less painful. If you're not an Ambessa encounter fan, this won't change your mind. But it'll at least make the low rolls much less painful.
Okay. So they finally did it. It took how many years? But Riot has officially patched low rolling. That's right, guys. When are they going to balance low rolling? They actually started addressing low rolling. So this is actually one of the biggest changes, which is like your items can sometimes just be completely screwed and you can have a dead game on the spot. And even if it's not a dead game, it could feel like a dead game because you just get dropped so much of the same component that you don't really want, and the worst case scenario happens. So this is really, really big. This is gonna have profound effects at a top level, and it also feel better. Like I think they potentially have discovered that like getting stuff like extra movers feels good. And this also buffs things like spatulas and pans as well, because you might need the other half of that. So if you get a pan or a spatula, low rolling double component actually gives you a higher chance of Reforger. Reforger is just going to be more common in the game. which can be really helpful for these patches and emblems. So that's pretty good. Augments, they require certain breakpoint. I mean, this is just good because basically they're improving their augment suggestion or augment offering logic. It's like if you played emissaries, like half your augments could just be stuff that you don't want. No one's really playing that much emissary right now unless you're playing around sorcerers, but let's say you're playing like, 2 watcher and 2 quake striker and whatever, like you can get offered all of that instead of actual augments you need. So this is probably good. This also is a buff to verticals as well. This is like a buff to enforcers, a buff to rebels, a buff to, I guess, experiment. Like it's buffed to like a lot of things. So they're buffing experiments. They're buffing verticals on 4-2. Anomalies, you can never see the same. I mean, this is just good quality of life. I think this is like a pretty big buff in general to everyone's gold on 4-6. So now, on average, you should spend less gold on 4-6. Also, this is just like rolling multiple anomalies is just not fun. Like I think one of the worst parts about the anomaly change was that it was just not very fun to deal with repeats. Because you clearly pass and you don't want it. So the fact that you can see it 3 times in like 8 rolls past 12 was like very, very frustrating and like it's just not a very good experience. So they basically created this is probably the halfway point. You can't hard force anomalies still, but you're gonna less likely to just be like spam with the options and all of a sudden it's like, haha, you didn't pick an anomaly in your first 12, haha, haha, like every 3 choices, 4 choices. Which doesn't happen that often, but when it does happen, you remember it forever. I'm pretty sure this doesn't change how much people are going to... I'm pretty sure Soju and Setsuko and all them are going to yap about Wandering Trainer still. But this actually makes Wandering Trainer more likely for everyone to be high rolling. I've already said it a few times, but I'll say it one more time. I actually really prefer if Wandering Trainer was like much more about low rolling, because then you have to like be more creative about your board. But that's not always fun for everybody. Like, I would prefer it if nobody has anything crazy with Wandering Trainer and everyone has to kind of build completely random boards that you just never would ever think about unless you're in this portal. But that's just probably because I'm a hyper engaged terminally online TFT player.
All right, on the trait side, not a lot, but 2 big ones to talk about here. The first one, Experiment Emblem is overperforming just a little.
Yeah.
It's right now, if you were to tell me there's secretly an S tier, I would believe it would be Experiment Emblem. It's really good. So we're going to lower the bonus health that the experiment clones get by from 60% to 50%.
Yep.
So small nerf to Experiment Emblem gets brought down. Should be still really good. Sorcerer and Visionary.
Oh, this is what
I've
I'm
talked about
afraid
these
of.
changes a lot on stream, but if you haven't watched a stream and you've been, this is your first change, both of these are losing their 8-piece bonus, and their 8-piece bonus is going to the 6-piece bonus. So Sorcerer 6 is now 90 AP and spells lower targets damage by 20%. Visionary 6-piece is now spells heal allies for 18% damage. The reason we're doing this change is that we have found that vertical classes don't really work when they have like 7 units like this. It's like, I got 1 emblem. Now, 8 Sorcerer is playable on live right now. I was wrong about that. But that's because we cranked the number to way unhealthy numbers.
Yes.
150 AP is wild and bonkers. That's not really okay. So we're hoping that by limiting classes to 6, like we did with Sentinels and Bruisers and stuff like that, what we see is really interesting comps being built, right? Instead of feeling like you have to go 8 Sorcerer, you can cap at 6 Sorcerer and then connect to things like Form Swapper or Black Rose or anything like that and make for more interesting comp creation. We're pretty confident in this. I've been testing it a bunch on PBE. I'm pretty happy with it. So hopefully this makes these a bit more playable and makes for comp creation. And moving forward, this will probably be something we take forward. Now, for those who are asking why not Pit Fighter, Pit Fighter is kind of actually the same thing. The only difference between Pit Fighter and Sorcerer is Pit Fighter is 6 pieces the cap, just like these. And then we threw in if you've got 2 emblems, enjoy your little special thing. But realistically, it's basically the same thing. But like I said, moving forward, classes are probably going to be capped around 6 or 7 moving forward. We probably won't do many bigger than that unless it really works. So,
okay, this has really big potential for being like sorcerers could be like really overpowered. More says he's testing a lot. I have faith that he is testing it on, but I actually do think that this is something I'm kind of worried that's going to be too good. Specifically, that 6 sorcerer will be too good on stage 3. Where if you get like, if you roll that, because sorcerer is a composition that you can roll on stage 6 or stage 6. I mean, you could, but you could also roll on stage 3 for, because getting 6 sorcerer online with Swain, Nami, Vlad, Lux, Syra plus an emblem is going to be extremely powerful, because the effect here is really, really good, because people won't have the damage to kill Swain as the front line. Yeah, I am concerned about that. Visionary, I am not entirely sure. I mean, you have what? You have Vex, Morgana, Rel, Renata, and you do need a Heimerdinger, so the 6 is a little bit less in that case. But I will say that, oh, and Nunu, I guess. You could do that with Visionary as well. Nunu, I forget Nunu's a Visionary. I haven't played that guy for Visionary in quite some time. So Visionary actually has a lot of potential as well. And this is a free Gunblade, right? So this is a free Gunblade on everybody, and that can get toxic. So I can imagine stage 3 is now going to be extremely dominated around AP if you hit a +1. Both of these are pan augments or pan emblems. And so if you get Cooking Pot tier into Visionary, Cooking Pot in Rod into Sorcerer, it could be stage 3 can be quite a slog. You have to deal with the rerollers and you have to deal with Sorcerer Visionary, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on anyone that's trying to play a level 8 4-cost comp that is not high rolling. So just warning, I'm putting a warning signal out there. This is something that I'm concerned about. I do agree with the design philosophy of what he's saying, though. He's right that 6 Sentinel and 6 Bruiser is largely a good thing. And the deep verticals were not very, like, do you remember, does anyone remember like the multi-strikers, like 9 multi-strikers last set? That was just dumb. And it was either going to be super broken or completely useless, and it was just completely useless most of the set. And so I think they've learned a lot about verticals on classes being like the second trait on the bottom. So I think this is a fine approach philosophically. The actual numbers on this is probably not right.
And then the last change here, this is a small one, but we've been talking about this Easter egg for a while. People seem confused it was on live. It's going live next patch. If you get a family emblem on Warwick, Jinx, and Vi, while having Violet, Vander, and Powder on your board, something special will happen.
It's not live now?
Curious what? There's a bunch of YouTube videos that are already spoiling it, but if you ever get the situation starting in 13.4, it'll do something. So,
oh, wait, what's Frodan doing?
It took forever to actually get these changes out.
All right, champs.
Shurko, brother
Lux.
man, thank you for the raid.
With Lone Hero being gone, we haven't seen as much Lux, but doesn't mean we still don't need to fix the problem with Lux, which is that if she shields herself, she needs to be monolocked. So guess what? If she shields herself,
oh, that's a red.
That's it.
Red sentence. You know what that means, guys. Rest in pepperonis.
Her much worse in the 1vx scenario, but otherwise isn't really a nerf. But now at least if we need to buff her, we can. So that's good. But yeah, you're not going to see any more Lux's soloing teams. Cool.
I mean, that's pretty important for early game.
Morgana is probably the worst.
And also, this means that the Sorc opener, they're buffing 6 Sorcerer, right? Because of this, they're now changing it. So the opener for Lux is going to be worse, which is good because they're buffing Sorcerers by a lot.
1 cost right now. You can't really play her. Certainly can't reroll her. So I want to kind of open up some options here, especially with Visionary being more playable now. I'd love to see like a 6 Visionary Morgana 3 kind of comp. So we're going to give Morgana a little love. 1-star and 2-star, very tiny buff. That's not what we're really trying to move the needle on here. It's not like 1 and 2-star Morgana are bad in the early game. But if you want to invest in Morgana, she's pretty awful, and that's where the buffs are going to come in. So 3-star and 4-star Morgana get a pretty chunky buff here. So
wow.
That's Powder, I don't think this is going to change much, but the idea here is we're trying to buff backline Powder, you know, the way you're supposed to play her. That being said, a big AoE mage is probably never going to be good as a 1-cost because all of her spell is in like a big AoE, and when there's only 3 or 4 units on the enemy team, that's not that impactful. But the change here is at least higher attack speed and lower AD to compensate, so that if she's in the back line with like a Shojin and stuff like that, she'll be able to cast more quicker without buffing frontline Powder. But again, I don't think this is going to make Powder that great. We kind of know there's a flaw with this spell, so yeah.
Okay. So this spell damage with Morgana, by the way, lasts 10 seconds. So it is spell damage distributed, but this makes me wonder how insane it'll be if you can find a way to get to Morgana for, let's say you get worth the wait Morgana. Or if you get, I don't know, I don't know, I can't imagine of a spot where you're playing like Moonlight Morgana, but you're not playing like, Vex, but maybe you can. But either way, Morgana 4's numbers are that's a pretty sizable buff. That's a pretty chunky buff. So, and I think this is probably just healthier because Lux is just so problematic in the early game, even without Lone Hero.
All right, 2 cost. Leona, small change here, but Leona 3, kind of the worst Sentinel. We kind of nerfed Singed 3 last patch, but didn't really buff Leona 3. Leona's still not worth investing in, so if you want to go the Renata reroll comp,
I mean, you did buff Leona.
Leona should be a viable option. So Leona gets a small buff, only at 3-star. So, yep. Urgot's in a really good spot here. He's a really good comp.
Good spot.
Definitely one of the low elo pub stompers. A lot of low elo players really not happy with this. When he gets out of control, he's pretty hard to deal with, especially if you get the Unleashing Rage with the 3 Sterix. That gets pretty hard to deal with. And that being said, we also didn't really design Urgot to be a frontliner. He's supposed to be kind of like a bruiser, not not a frontliner that's tanking everything. So we're lowering his base armor and MR by 5. Very tiny nerf here. We still want Urgot comps to be playable, but this should make it a little more tolerable. So Vander's fallen out of the wayside here. People usually when they play family, they kind of just ignore poor Vander. And he's the dad. He shouldn't be ignored. So Vander 2, small spell armor and MR buff. Vander 3, 30 more. Again, not a big swing here. But if you invest in Vander, you should be rewarded. So Vander going to be a little tankier at 3-star. All right.
So, yeah, Mordog just calling out EU. I'm just saying. 4.5 in NA. In EU, averaging a 3.5. It's a low elo stomper. I'm not even quoting him out of context. What about EMEA? Urgot 3.99 in APAC. Urgot 3.99 APAC. I was waiting for the day Mordog would gas up North America. Finally, we got there. This is, by the way, this Vander. Okay, and that's justified. Urgot's very, very good. And this is, you might think this is not that big of a deal, but it kind of is. Remember, the survivability of Urgot is a big deal. Oh, speak of the devil, Mordog. Thanks for the raid, man. We definitely were not quoting anything out of context just now. Vander 3 buff is actually really good for not the family line necessarily, but for gloves off. I actually think this hero augment is really underrated. Gloves off. He might not be that good in the data. If you look at the stats, it's actually not that great. But I've actually played this comp before, and it's actually pretty good. I have a YouTube video of it actually. I think it has a lot of potential. Mainly because I just don't think people like take it very often. Even you kind of have to have like items for him to start things off, but it's a pretty sizable buff. And Vander 3, when he gets the gloves off rolling, I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but he's actually really difficult to deal with. So I'm pretty sure Vander is going to be much more reliable. Also, this is a buff to Zeri, so maybe you can roll for Vander 3 and you can roll for Scar 3. So yeah. I played it earlier. It was underwhelming. Went 6th. You just played it wrong, in my opinion. I hit everything and I beat everything in the lobby. So okay, but these are good. And Leona 3 is a good buff. I've gotten Caretaker's Favor or Caretaker's Ally Leona like 3 times, and I've been disappointed every single time I got Leona 3. So it's good.
Again, not a big swing here, but if you invest in Vander, you should be rewarded. So Vander going to be a little.
They're slowly buffing all the arcane characters.
All right, Loris.
Again?
Loris is getting pretty close, though.
What?
And as much as Loris is kind of weak, we can't really buff him too much. Although I have heard some people start to say Loris isn't weak, which, good. But, we can't go too crazy here, so we're only buffing 3-star Loris. 3-star Loris' spell shield's going up 100, so he'll be a decent amount tankier. But just that, so...
Just Loris 3.
Should be a small buff to Loris. Scar 3 is great. The third number shouldn't be green. It should be white. Scar 3 is great. Scar 1, not so good. Scar 2, not so good.
Pritchard's
so
decent.
trying to help Scar 1 and Scar 2 just a bit. 25 extra heal at 1-star, 15 extra heal at 2-star, and not buffing 3-star. 3-star Scar does not need a buff, but this should help ease into that comp a bit more. So I expect Firelight to be pretty good next patch.
I mean, they're good this patch as well. Loris 3. So there's actually people who are rerolling Twisted Fate and Loris already. So there's a buff to that comp. And that is the real comp. We saw that played a couple times. Was it played in tournament in the stats at all? Let's see. Twisted Fate reroll 4.3, and usually you do go for Loris 3 in that. Twisted Fate reroll 4.2. I mean, there's definitely shades of that. Yeah, I mean, it's already solid. It's already pretty solid. Looks like the Loris buff is gonna be really nice. And that's just gonna mean that you could roll 4 Loris 3 on Enforcers as well. I mean, Enforcers don't even need the help. They're actually quite good. Scar 1 and 2 buff. I mean, Scar 2 is not even bad if you have it on stage 3, but he definitely falls off pretty hard. And the gap between Scar 2 and Scar 3 is pretty big, so I think they're recognizing that. They're buffing the Watchers. They're buffing Vander and they're buffing Scar. So that also, that also buffs? That also buffs the other hero augment, Crimson Pact. Because you can play for Vander or Scar and the Watchers. They also buff other reroll comps that like the Watcher frontline, such as Tristana. Tristana likes playing around some of these Watchers as well. So a couple of comps are getting buffed that people may not be paying attention to.
That's already pretty good. So hopefully this helps ease into its kind of really good cap. Speaking of which, Garen, if I have minor concerns with this patch, Firelight might be one of them, which is cool to see.
We're buffing Garen?
But Garen is just a little underperforming for where we want him to be as a tank.
Come on.
We're not buffing his health ratio. People are totally happy throwing Warmogs on this guy and using his emissary bonus. But his AP ratio on his shield, a little weak. If you ever end up with a crown guard on him, it's pretty bad.
I see. For this bad items.
He's going to get a little bit more shield AP ratio. And remember, that's only part of his shield. The rest of it is percent health, so pretty minor.
Okay, Garen does not need the buff, in my opinion. But they're buffing something that does, which is if you don't have Garen items, you don't really want to play Garen if you don't have the belt items. So they're trying to increase his versatility. But I'm pretty sure the stats look bad because everything around Garen generally is not very impressive. Specifically, the playing around the 4 emissary AD line. But I'm pretty sure if people stopped playing the bad version of emissaries and people were playing the good version of emissaries, that number wouldn't look that bad. If anything, I'm pretty sure Garen's numbers look pretty good if people stopped playing the bad emissary comp. Emissary Corki 5.2, right? Day 1. Emissary Corki, the one that people are playing. Emissary Corki, where is it? Hit me with it. 5.11. Where is it on EU? I guess he categorized as Emissary Flex, which I don't think is I guess they're combining it. Emissary Corki, a 6.1. Okay, do you guys understand how bad a comp has to be to average a 6.1 in 18 games? Do you understand how terrible that is? That means if you go 7th with it, you're that's basically the expected result a good portion of the time. It is terrible. If you get a 6, you're outperforming it on average. It is awful. So stop playing the bad version of it. And I mean, the reason why it's not bottom tier on TFT Academy is because when you have a good spot for it, you still can play for it in top 4. But it's arguable that it's not even B tier.
Twitch has kind of emerged as the best 4 cost in the game. Enough that it needed the littlest of nerfs.
Not Elise?
The mono reduction on him was perfect. That was good. But now what we're doing is when he's in his empowered state, the attack speed will go down from 85% to 75%. This should put him in line with the other 4 costs and not have him be quite the lead. This plus the experiment emblem should put him in line with everything else. So just, again, trying to get that balance in exactly the right spot. You do small nudges. From what I've seen, he's still good. I wouldn't worry about this. This is not a big nerf, but he does need a tiny touchdown.
Okay.
5 cost. This isn't a real change, but if you've ever hit Jace 3, he's kind of the one 3-star 5 cost that loses, and he shouldn't lose. So his damage is going up by a lot.
Wow.
Yay. Jace 3. Boom.
Jace 3. I said this fact on I don't know if you guys have heard, but I do a podcast with Dishsoap, TFT Academy's podcast called Study Hall. On our most recent episode, I actually quizzed Dishsoap on what is the weakest performing 3-star 5 cost. And if you look, there's one 5 cost that doesn't have a win rate in the 90s or better. Jace. Oh, it actually just crossed the 90 threshold. Okay, it's better now. But if you looked at it before, you looked at it a couple days ago, Jace was at like 89% win rate with Jace 3, which is just like crazy that you could lose 10% of the time with Jace 3 compared to the others, which were like high 90s. So that is actually true.
That's kind of the idea. So yeah, Jace 3. And then 6 costs. This is a big one. So Victor was kind of, when 6 costs came out, if there was one champion that made 6 costs not popular with competitive players, it was Victor, because the utility he provided that you would throw in his comp was too good. All of a sudden you had 30% shred and sunder, you had a 2-second stun, and he was great. He required no setup. He was just amazing to throw in your comp.
Yep.
So clearly he had too much utility. So we are removing the fact that his Death Ray has shred and sunder. That's gone. You are not getting shred and sunder for a Victor.
It's a really big deal.
He's not going to be that out. He is just the 2-second stun. That is his utility. But that being said, he does need a buff. The problem with Victor is if you put items on him, frankly, you're kind of griefing right now. You're not supposed to put items on this guy. It's pretty bad, and we don't want that to be the case. So we're lowering the percent HP damage that you got for free with 0 items, but raising his AP ratios quite a bit.
His spell damage.
He also needs the same 2-star buff that Mel and Warwick got last patch. So you can see here, Death Ray goes up from 50 to 60, but the big one here is the main spell goes up from 100 to 150 base. That is a 50% spell buff. This is a big buff to his spell. He should be worthy of investing items in now. But again, no shred sunder. That's the thing. Victor is still a 6 cost. He's supposed to be powerful, but he's, again, less of a throw in every comp now and more of a might require some investment. So I don't expect this is going to change his placements that much. He might still be the most popular 6 cost. Yeah. As I've said, that 2-second stun is very valuable and it's not going anywhere. So, but hopefully this makes him a little less free utility.
A 50% spell damage buff. I mean, the shred and sunder, some people are like, okay, this is just stupid. They're clearly going to make Victor even more broken. Who cares about the shred and sunder? Shred and sunder is a really big deal. It's a really, really big deal, especially if you're playing compositions that either lacked it or even if you like bridge into it, like you're playing a AP line and you splash in Jace and then you play Victor and you had no way to sunder. That's like a really big deal. Not to mention uptime. So if you like lose your frontline unit and you don't have spark anymore, or you have static shiv and it's just not zapping the right units, like if you just think this is not a big deal, I'll just say you just don't understand this unit, and maybe you're just bad at TFT. But the damage, the spell damage buff is a massive deal. That's a huge deal.
All right, Radiant items. Right now, Radiant items are fine. People like Radiant items. They're good. There's just a bunch at the bottom that aren't good enough. So the ones at the bottom, they getting buffed, because right now the Radiant Augments also are like meh.
Wait, they're buffing like quality over quantity.
6s. They're not bad. But especially if you don't know which items are good. That's
I like a lot.
Lame. So Archangel Staff gets 10 more AP. Blue Buff gets 10 more AD and AP. Deathblade gets 8% more damage amp. Infinity Edge gets 5%
JG
more
buff
AP.
is huge.
Jeweled Gauntlet gets 15% more AP. Rabadon's Death Cop gets 10 more AP. And Hurricane gets 15% more AD. So these Radiant items should be a bit better. That's it. Pretty simple.
It's simple, but this makes prismatic orbs that get masterwork upgrades stronger. I mean, it's a buff to Radiant Refactor as well. It's a buff to reroll comps that really want this kind of stuff. It's a buff to wind up monkey. It's just gonna accelerate it. It's a buff to quality over quantity. It's not. It's to I know it might seem like on paper like okay, it's just a Radiant item, but like man. Also, Radiant Relics is much more desirable. Pandora's items 2 or 3 is much more desirable now. I mean, some of these numbers are good. It's an important buff though, because like Jewel Gauntlet Radiant JG has actually always been kind of bad because it didn't give you as much AP and it gave you a bunch of crit, which you didn't really want. So that's actually nice. But man, some of these numbers are pretty wild. Blue buff surprisingly is a little bit awkward because a lot of the people that you put blue buff on don't actually want this AD. Like Heimer doesn't really want it. I guess Mel doesn't really want it. But it used to be really insane on Ezreal from set 10 when he wanted the blue buff, like blue buff. Remember blue buff, red buff, i.e. Ezreal. It was so good on him. Bring one of those units back. That was fun. Oh, Caitlyn. Oh, you're right. Yeah, it could be good on Caitlyn. I forgot.
All right, Augments. Augments is where probably the bulk of the changes are. You've seen we haven't had that many changes so far, but Augments have probably the biggest amount here. So let's go through them.
I'm happy
Fire
to hear that.
Sale. Yep, everyone was right. It's too strong for a silver.
Yep.
Now instead of stealing any champ, it'll only steal a 3-cost or lower.
Okay,
meaning
good.
You're only going to get 1, 2, or 3 gold per turn. And it kind of nerfs it, by the way. This is rare, but if you ever have a shop that is just 4 and 5 costs, it's
Nothing
not going to work.
happens.
You're just not going to get any gold. So
Okay. So it gets worse as the game goes
that's
on.
a pretty minor case, but this is a nerf to Fire Sale. It is a worse augment.
It's still good though.
10. Glass Cannon. Glass Cannon is not a very good augment on 2-1. It's great 3-2 and 4-2. Not very good on 2-1. From 2-1.
Did he leak augment stats, guys? Did he just leak some augment stats? He just said Glass Cannon is good on 3-2 and 4-2. This is something that I just see perpetuated in my chat. More dog leaking stats again. He just said an augment is good on 3-2 and 4-2.
Rigged Shop Plus. We're going to give you 4 extra rerolls to get you going on your rigged shops. Cool. Spirit Link 1 will tick 1 second sooner every 4 seconds instead of every 5 seconds. That's a buff. Great. Survivor. This is a weird augment, and we know it's a weird augment. That's kind of the point. It's supposed to be one of those high-risk augments that you take it 2-1, hope you make top 4, and then get a crap load of gold. So we're just going to keep buffing it until it's like fun. But now it's 88 gold.
88 gold's a lot.
If you take this on 2-1 and make it to top 4, you're going to be heavily rewarded. If we have to go to 100 gold next patch, we will. We're going to keep buffing this augment until
I hope this gets to the 200s. I would love to see someone just be like, yeah, I'm just going to take it. And like, this sounds crazy. If you guys don't know what Survivor is, it's when it's a silver augment, you take at 2-1, and after 3 players are eliminated, you have to get this gold. It's basically something that just does nothing. Literally, when you click this, most of the time on average, it says do nothing. But they're gonna keep buffing it until someone takes it. So, oh man,
level where it's like, oh, they took Survivor.
Yes. Okay, hold on. Everyone has to agree. We can't take this. Do not take this next patch. If they take it next patch, they're gonna buff it. So let's just all agree to not take this for one more patch. And then they have to go to the next higher. And then the next patch, we'll see. If they buff it to 100, we can hold out for more. And maybe they go to like 115. Let's just see how hard we can go. Yeah, it sounds like a good deal.
Kind of the purpose of the augment. It is what it is. Trolling. The Trundle buff plus the trolling buff was one of the few mistakes of last patch. Trolling ended up a little too good.
Yeah.
It's probably the best hero augment in the game right now. So we're just undoing the buff to the augment, the 20% attack speed. It should still be good, but it just puts it back in line where it should be. That's fine. Young, Wild, and Free. This augment was way too good at 3-2. It became basically an auto pick. Because like what would happen is if you're at 100 health on 3-2, you take it.
There's no downside.
And then you get a carousel pick and you kind of snowball the game.
Mm-hmm.
Not very healthy. So we're removing it from 3-2. You can only take it at 2-1 now. But at least to reward you, we'll give you 5 gold to at least get you started. It's supposed to be like a cool, I can get carousel picks, but not free wins and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Okay, if anyone's like, more dog league and more stacks, you guys don't need that. Like, trolling was the best hero augment in the game. You knew that if you clicked it. Like, it's literally like right here. In fact, arguably S tier as well. If you have a good spot for it, trolling is really good. So that's a good nerf. Young, Wild, and Free. I mean, he's completely right. It's so broken on 3-2 if you're from ahead, because then you just have no downside for win streaking. In TFT, the trade-off of win streaking is you get worse carousels and less priority. You can't fix your items, and Young, Wild, and Free basically negates all that.
All right, gold augments. Forbidden Magic. This is the Black Rose one. This augment's bad. Now that Black Rose is balanced, we can buff it. Yep. So we're buffing it. You'll get more takedown stacks and more AD per stack.
Yeah.
Cool. Forward thinking. This is another high-risk one.
Yeah.
One of the most annoying parts about this one was if you had like 140 gold coming from this thing or 120, it would take forever for it to just come out.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't actually get all your gold until about 10 seconds left in the round. It was way too slow.
Yeah.
So that's been sped up. And then we're going to
Yeah.
lower the risk a little bit. Instead of 6 turns, it'll be 5.
That's
but
big.
We'll nerf the gold a bit to 70. So now you take it on 3-2.
You get it 4-2.
Get your gold on 4-2 for your roll down.
Yeah.
Should help a bit.
Help a bit. That's actually such a big deal. Also because you get more time now. And it's going to... So this is a massive buff. This augment actually might be like straight up. Like, if you're ahead, you can just click it, and then you just get a huge amount of gold. You sack stage 3, and you get like a fast... Like, this could be an insanely powerful augment if you have the spot for it, and you are very good at managing, like, understanding what to do with your gold at that point. So, huge buff to this. This augment's actually been bad. If you ever did the math behind it, it actually is just less HP than bulky buddies if you get it if you wait like 1.5 stages. Like, you could take this, or you could take bulky buddies and have it now. It was like pretty bad. So this is correct.
Glass Cannon 2, same thing as Glass Cannon 1, gone from 2-1. Gloves off. This is the Vander hero augment. This is the worst hero augment in the game right now. So we're gonna buff the AoE damage. He doesn't really need to hit the target he punches any harder. He's already one-shotting them.
I'm not so sure about that.
I'm
not so sure about that. I'm not so sure about that.
Artillerists are good right now. And this augment's bad, which means this augment's bad because artillerists are good. So we're buffing Rocket Collection a little bit. Scavenger gets a nice quality of life change here. Champs with no items now grant an item tailored to the unit receiving the item instead of the dying champion. So that should make Scavenger a little bit better.
Wait, champions with no items now grant an item tailored to the units receiving the item instead of dying champs. Okay, I guess they're just making a Scavenger more consistent. That means I have to click this. It's not just a green sentence. It's a long green sentence with not a lot of clarity, which means it has to be broken. So
quality of life change here.
You guys know you know how it works around here.
Now grant an item tailored to the unit receiving the item instead of the dying champion. So that should make Scavenger a little bit better. Shop glitch removed from 3-2. It's a terrible augment on 3-2. It's good on 2-1. Terrible on 3-2.
Yes, awful.
Reunion was a little overpowered, so Vi's going to do a little less damage.
Very overpowered in my opinion, but yeah.
Sisters, this augment has been bugged for a bit. The stats were backwards, which wasn't great. Vi was getting the attack speed and Jinx was getting the AD. So we're switching it. So it actually works the way it says it does on the tooltip. And we're getting
it's been bugged the entire time? It literally just was not... It was working backwards?
AD buff for Vi. So Vi is going to be buffer when Jinx gets a takedown.
Oh.
Cool. Trade sector. Good old classic trade sector. This augment's been around since augments came out.
Yep.
It has kind of been power crept out of the meta. It's not very good right now. So we're at least going to give it some extra starting gold to get you rolling. But yeah.
Hey, to get you rolling.
Too much value. This augment's great on 2-1 now. It's terrible on 3-2.
Yep.
So it's gone from 3-2. Welcome to the playground. A little too hard to activate at 17 seconds. So we're putting it at 15 seconds. Cool.
Okay, so they're buffing a lot of these augments. I mean, this is correct. Shop glitch we actually been talking about them and advocating for Shop glitch plus or too much value plus, but it's good that they just remove it. Reunion's really good. I know that we're joking about augment stats, but augment stats, one more time in case you haven't heard, augment stats do kind of exist a little bit. If you look at the traits and you look up Reunion, he says a little too good. Reunion is literally averaging in the 3s. Okay, it's basically as close to 4 as you possibly can get, but Reunion is extremely good right now. So if you just look at all these traits, like Reunion is a 3.9, but look at Sisters. Sisters is a 4.9. So they need to converge them a little bit, make them meet in the middle. Reunion's very, very, very good. Part of it is because they buffed Echo so hard. Part of it is because they buffed around the traits a lot. So Scrap is better. So Scrap Reunion is good. Enforcers are a lot better. So Reunion Enforcers are good. Ambushers are better. So Reunion and Ambushers are a lot better. So that's partially why, but it's important that they nerf this.
And then prismatic augments. Birthday present. I am excited and nervous for this buff. I am glad birthday present is getting a buff. It needs a buff. Its stats are not great right now. 2 gold per level up is very strong. In the past, when it was 1 gold per level up, it's been strong. So
wow,
if you see this augment now, don't sleep on it. I think it's going to be a very good augment with this buff.
Yeah. Because you might think of this as just like 2 gold. Okay, from 3 to 4 is this. So that's what, like 16 gold or whatever how much gold. It's because this helps you make your interest special for the next. So that gold grants more gold. In reality, this is like adding what 20 something gold to the augment. That's a lot. It's a lot.
Blazing Soul also needed a buff, so more AP, more attack speed.
Really?
Cool.
Oh.
Coronation. This augment's been a little too good for a bit, so
that's true. That is true.
5% less AD and attack speed.
That is
5
true.
less AP. Cool. Prismatic Pandora items on 4-2. It's just too late to sit there and re-roll your Radiant item. So we're removing the Prismatic one from 4-2. Prismatic Pipeline. This augment has become kind of the catch-all. Although I'm hearing it's starting to fall out of favor in challenger lobbies. But it is still too good in our stats.
That's a big
now
nerf.
you just get a Prismatic Orb. No bonus loot inside of it whatsoever. It's just a Prismatic Orb.
Oh,
which,
wow.
You know, it's still a Prismatic Orb, but yeah.
Oh, wow.
Quality over quantity. Small nerf to the bonus HP that you get for having a Radiant item. No big deal. Shopping Spree. Kind of like Trade Sector.
Deal.
This is another one that's been power crept out of the meta. So now you're going to get an extra reroll every time you level up.
Okay.
Cool. Sponging. I think this augment's going to be very good now because now instead of 5 items, you can get 6 full items. A Prismatic that can generate 6 full items of value.
That's a lot of items.
Seems pretty good.
That's a lot of items.
So especially if you're playing a comp that lots of people like items, I think Sponging will be very good now. Tactician's Kitchen. This is another really safe pick that's always good.
2-1.
Small nerf to this here where you don't get the Tactician Shield for the first 3 player combats. You'll just get the random emblem. So 3 rounds where you're not necessarily snowballing super hard. Tomb Raider 2. This augment actually looks decent in the data, but it's obviously survivor bias because right now people are only taking it when they're in the spot where it's probably going to work. That being said, we do want you to consider taking this more often. So you're going to get a completed item anvil when you take it, in addition to all the ones you get on kill. So should be good. And then really what I'd call a bug fix more than anything. But the Warwick Prismatic Augment in double up is terrible because you do half damage. So now it's going to get reduced to 20 damage in double up. So it can actually activate.
I didn't really think Blazing Soul need to get nerfed. Coordination nerf makes sense. Removing these items makes sense. Nerfing these augments makes sense. They're very overperforming. Quality of quantity is really, really strong right now. I think Sponging is underrated right now, but kind of situational. But 6 items is a lot. It's a lot. You slam a single Warmogs. You take Sponging. If you have Warmog, you take Sponging. You have 6 Warmogs now instead of 1. If you play around a trait that utilizes that, that's pretty good. So let's say you're playing Sentinels. You play Warmogs. Damn, that's like pretty good. Tactician's Kitchen. Shield granted after 3 player combats. So you don't get the +1 spot until after the carousel. I mean, that's fair. I think you can still take it. Give you direction. Just doesn't spike you immediately. Also, kind of makes you have a little bit more econ. Even though it nerfs a little bit of that, it gives you a little bit more econ because now you don't have to field 1 extra unit, which means your board is less expensive, which means that you can make more economy. So not even that big of a deal, in my opinion, except for the little bit of extra HP and maybe your win streak capabilities. Tomb Raider. Okay, they're buffing. This augment's actually secretly pretty bad, so I think you talked about that. And then I don't really know much about double up here, so I'm just going to trust them on this one.
Because you do half damage. So now it's going to get reduced to 20 damage in double up, so it can actually activate. All right, we're almost there, but one more big thing to talk about. Anomalies. We are adding 9 new anomalies.
Wow.
There's some new toys to play with here. Yeah, it'll be fun. Some of them are cool.
Oh, I played with one of these
Some of them
already.
might be really strong. We'll see. Brutal Claws, very good for ambushers, obviously. You gain 40% critical strike, and your critical strikes deal a bleed for 40% of their damage over 3 seconds. Also good on stuff like Twitch, but definitely a good ambusher one to play with. Cultivating Magic, gain 30 AP, gain 5 more AP permanently for each 10,000 damage dealt. If you're playing something like, I played this with Frontline Powder, and we got it up to like 110 AP. If you're playing a solo AP carry, this is really, really good. Cybernetic Empowerment. Gain 8% attack speed and 2% attack speed for each component held by your team. What this means is if you have a full item, that is 4% attack speed. So count all your items, kind of like scrap. It's counted all, you get that much attack speed, and it'll be better. My read on this one is it's a little weak, but we'll see. Give it a try.
It doesn't sound like that much.
Hive Mind. This is another one I think is a little weak, but gain a copy of the first champion. This champion kills each player combat. This can do some pretty silly things. If you get this and then start killing a frontliner, you can start getting copies of that. You also gain 25% damage amp. So if you need some extra econ and want to get some kills or steal their units,
Yeah.
There you go.
Elise. I can finally hit Elise.
Infectious Anomaly. This is going to be a popular one. The way this works is you put it on somebody, you gain 15% AD and AP. Then at the start of the round, that jumps to somebody else. Now 2 people have the anomaly. Next round, both of those jump. Now you have 4. But next round, all of those jump. And eventually your whole team is covered in this thing.
It's very cool.
And then every turn they're all
already.
jumping and increasing by 2 AD and AP per turn. What we've seen is that generally by the end of the game, your entire team has somewhere between 25 and 35 AD and AP. So an anomaly giving your entire team 30 AD and AP, pretty good. But you do have to get there.
Scoreboard scrapper.
You don't take this when you're low on health, but you do take this when you have, again, like an emissary comp that's got a lot of carries, and you have the time and the health for it to spread. So pretty high cap. Expect this one to be pretty popular. Plus, it's just fun to watch. Power Up. This is the AD version of Cultivating Magic. Really good on like a Tristana, for example. Titan of Teamwork. If you're playing a reroll comp and you need a tank, this can be really, really good. I expect this to be good on like Vander, for example, in Family, or even, frankly, Violet. Just like the durability will be nice.
Okay.
Vampiric Affinity. Basically, gain 20% Omnivamp, 40% while below 75 health. Could be good on like an Ambessa. My read is like, unless you're really doing a lot of damage and tanky, it's kind of weak, but we'll see. And then finally, Voracious Appetite. This is basically Briar the Anomaly. You turn them into Briar from last set. The champion gains 300 health and 15% damage amp. And then each round, you gain a consumable that you can use to give them another 150 health and 3% damage.
Briar biting.
So if you're on a win streak, you can take this and start stacking and get really, really big. But you do have to pay 3-player health. So
it sounds really good. Okay. Let me just give some quick thoughts. I mean, historically, this was really so. Last set when Briar you could bite, it was really good, really, really good. And the thing is, it gave you a bunch of base stats for being low HP, and then every time you bite, it was good. If it was anywhere near that power level for Briar, then this is a good anomaly. What I don't look forward to is everyone in chat yelling at you for not biting, or if you forget to bite or something like that. That's not going to be fun. But I think it's going to be funny for you guys, I suppose. So maybe a net positive. I played Infectious Anomaly. They accidentally released this to live already, this patch. But I guess they hotfixed it because I played it on OCE and it was out. And I don't think that was intentional. And it was stronger than this. It felt really good when I played it. So it's very cool visually. I agree that's going to be popular. I don't know how to read like gain 5 permanent AP for each 10,000 damage dealt. Like that's like one of those things where I think I just have to like watch it and see how fast it scales. It doesn't intuitively sound that good because you're only getting 30 AP and then you get 5 AP. You're not usually doing more than you're going to get more than one stack on average unless the fight drags out. So I think it's like going to be because most fights are like between like 6,000 to 8,000 or something like that for like an AP carry. But maybe you have like a hyper carry setup where it can be good. So I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like if it happens once per fight consistently, it's good. If it happens like once every 2 fights, it might be too slow. So I'm not sure. This just sounds really good. Not even just on ambushers. This just sounds good on anyone that plays IE. So Brutal Claws might just be like, if you play IE on this unit, you probably just pick it. So that it might be as simple as that. Cybernetic Empowerment does sound kind of weak because if you think about like the average amount of items you get what, like you get like 7 to 8 full items by the end of stage 4. And if you pick an item augment, let's just be generous and say 9. So you have 9 times 2, 18. 18 plus 8 is 20. It doesn't sound like that good. So, because it's only affecting 1 unit, right? So, if you get like, aren't there anomalies that give you more attack speed immediately and then you get like an additional bonus? He made fun of, not made fun of, but he used Repulsor as an example. Repulsor gives you 40 unconditionally, and on cast, you knock back targets. It might be a little bit on the weak side. I actually don't think I'm going to pick this. Hive Mind probably has something where, like, if you're contested and you need to hit, like, I can finally hit Alawi too. I can finally hit Elise too. It also can farm 3 stars because I'm pretty sure a copy is basically the same as Duplicator. So even if there are none left in the pool, you can still generate copies of that. That's interesting. The only issue is that this happens at 4/6, so it's, like, really late. So Does it work with scrap items? I don't know, actually. I wonder if it has synergy with like sponging and scrap and other things that like give you more components in the middle of the fight. Maybe. It could be better if it works mid-fight. But I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure. Oh, sorry, my math was wrong. It's like 36% attack. Either way, if it's 36% attack speed instead of the 20 whatever, it's like not that good to me. Titan of Teamwork, gain 1 durability for each star level on your board. 3-star champions count as 4-star. So, for a mass reroll thing, this is actually the best right now for Sentinel reroll. So if you're playing around like Singed, hi Tao. You're playing around Singe, you're playing around Renata, you're playing around all that stuff. I think this is really good in that comp because durability is exactly what you're looking for. It might be good with family, but family already gives you durability, right? So less of a priority. Vampiric Infinity, gain 20% Omnivamp, increase to 40% when below 75 HP. Man, that's really good for melee carries. So might be really powerful on like Smeech, who wants double healing. So like a reroll melee comp like that.
Pretty interesting. I don't expect it to be a super popular one, but yeah. So there you go. 9 new toys to play with. And then, of course, while we're at it, a couple buffs. I will say some of these buffs are getting to the point where it's like they're going to be really good now in the right spots. It's just people have to figure out the right spots. Arcana Overwhelming now gives 100 MR. Defense Expert now gives 90% more armor and MR. Triple Gargoyles with this is going to be disgusting.
Okay.
Repulsor's in a weird spot. It already gives 40% attack speed. So we can't really buff the attack speed, so we're buffing the knockback range. I don't actually know if this buffs it much at all, but now if they're further away, you can knock them back and be really annoying. So
yeah, cool. I mean, the thing about Repulsor is that this effect, the knockback effect, when it's good, Keaton, thanks for the raid, man. When Repulsor is good, it ends up being really, really obnoxious. Do you guys remember Lysandra when she did the knockback from set 11? She would teapot, she would pot something and throw it back, and how much it impacted fights. If this ends up being really good, this could be really, 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 really annoying to deal with. So, yeah, just you gotta be really careful about how Repulsor could work because it could really mess up front lines like really badly. But maybe that just puts. Maybe I'm overestimating it.
Titanic Strikes. This one will cleave for 50% AD damage instead of 40%. Touch of Frost. The debuff duration now lasts 8 seconds instead of 4. This will allow you to chill people for longer, trigger that stun a little bit more often. So hopefully Touch of Frost feels like the one that shows up every time you reroll, and no one seems excited to take it. So for now, it's going to get this buff.
Oh, man.
And then Wolf Familiars get another 10% AD.
Chills. And
that leaves us with the bug fixes. Deep Roots now specifies it pulls into melee range as opposed to range. This is just a tooltip.
Oh, yeah. Does anyone have any tech with Wolf Familiars already? I feel like I've only seen it taken on like Tristana or something like that has like an amazing amount of AD, but I've never seen it otherwise. But these others like make sense. These are just ones that like aren't very common. I think Titanic Strikes is just. I think it's the problem isn't the AD. It's just the fact that it only hits adjacent enemies, and a lot of people unclump late game.
Get another 10% AD.
Silvermere Dawn, Caitlyn.
And that leaves us with the bug fixes. Deep Roots now specifies it pulls into melee range as opposed to range. This is just a tooltip fix. Hunger for Power now specifies the ally must be adjacent. Just a tooltip change. Quicksilver now correctly blocks stuns from Dramatic Entrance and Rennie. Victor's cast animation is no longer paused by stuns. I forgot to talk about this. This is a big one. What this means is if you have 2 Victors and neither of them get interrupted, normally what happens on live right now is it's a coin flip. Yours might stun first, then theirs. Or theirs might stun first, then yours. It's really dumb. It's really annoying. Now they will both stun at the exact same time. Everyone gets lifted up. It's fair. Victor's more fair.
Yes.
Great.
Wow. Lovely.
Caitlyn, excuse me, running out of voice. Caitlyn's headshots no longer fizzle. If I had a second worry about this patch, Caitlyn getting this bug fix without a nerf might make Enforcer a little good.
Fizzled?
We'll have to keep an eye on it. If you told me Caitlyn was supposed to get like a 3 AD nerf on top of this, I'd believe it. So keep that in mind, though, that Caitlyn will be more consistent. Little asterisk here. Keep an eye on this. A little worried. Jace's Hextech crystals now correctly attached to units, so units won't walk out of the explosion. This is a ranged Jace buff for consistency.
Oh my
Quick
god.
Striker Crest and Quick Striker Crown
This is
are
the
now
real
mutually
patch.
exclusive, so they work like every other emblem augment in the game.
These are real patch notes.
Morgana's Shield Reeve no longer stacks on units afflicted with multiple stacks of her damage over time. Yes, I bet you didn't know this, but if you had Morgana cast 3 times on somebody, they were stacking and you could shield for nothing. But
Lone Hero
pretty
Lux
rare
counter.
case. Bug's been fixed. Pretty funny.
Oh, I thought that was intentional.
Executes no longer bypass Last Stand and Prismatic Flesh Ripper. Cool. Prismatic Flesh Rippers revive.
Oh,
now
this
always
is so
proc before
annoying.
Last Stand if you have both. And Welcome to the Playground can no longer rarely give family members with emblems. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I knew that. Okay, so if so if you had Gold Collector, you hard countered somebody that picked Last Stand or the Flesh Ripper that would just revive, and they just wouldn't come back. And I remember this happened to me on stream, and I was like, what the hell happened to my anomaly? And they're like, oh, they have Gold Collector, so like you don't get it. And I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. And they're like, no, it's like a thing. And so apparently that was a bug. They said that was working as intended. But Chad was like, yeah, that's just like how it works. I'm like, that's not how it's supposed to work, man. You're telling me like this one executes just like continually counters my entire anomaly. And I lost, like, they said it was top. I think I was playing for like a 4th there. And I went 6 and I was just pissed. So that doesn't sound like it was correct, the correct interaction. And then Welcome to the Playground can no longer give family members with emblems. The way this works, I think, is if all of your family members, I think there's like, if you have multiple 4 stars of them, they can start giving you other copies. So I've seen people farm like 3-star Echo because they play like Echo with family emblem, and then they started printing Echoes every turn. It's like a rare corner case scenario, but apparently you could do that. It's pretty funny actually.
And there you go. That's the patch. Like I said, it's not insane. There's the 9 anomalies, Victor, Sorcerer, Visionary. Those are the big ones. And then those quality of life changes. Otherwise, the balance changes are minor. If you're somebody who loves the meta getting shaken up every patch, sorry to disappoint. But the good news is, if you are one of those people, this is also when the Lunar New Year Set 4.5 Revival goes live. So you can play with that.
That's right. I need to make the comps for that.
But otherwise, I mean, it's a good meta. We're not trying to shake it up. That's all I've always said. If the meta's balanced, we'll leave it alone. That's basically what we're doing here. So, but we'll see how it goes. We'll see if anything evolves. We'll see what happens.
Evolves.
There you go. So, all right, that's it for this patch. Another patch in 2 weeks because that's how we do things on TFT. And there you go. All right, that's gonna do it for me. Until next time, take it easy.
All right. Thank you very much, more dog. Appreciate the good work. Not that big of a patch, and yet I somehow spent like an hour talking about it. But I do think that he's right that there's not that much that needs to be changed. There is one thing about this patch that I would love to be added, which is I feel like the distribution of the encounters, or some of the encounters themselves, could use examination. And I know that they want to keep the patch light, but it does feel like there's an overrepresentation of some encounters that feel very swingy, and this has been a source of some people complaining about stuff. But I do think that the numbers aren't correct there. But maybe that's something they'll touch at the very end, because ultimately that's not a high priority compared to some of the other stuff that happens. Please remove Vander's portal. Really? We're complaining about gold augments now? And then, okay, you know what? That might mean that like it's the perfect. It's perfect. Like that's like the least of the offenders. See, now on the one hand, there's people who say that, and then there's people who say, you know, I please stop giving me like Crab Rave and Warwick's Hunger and everything like that. There's extreme, like now they have to listen to both. There's people who say it's too boring, and other people say it's too crazy, it's too wild, it's not competitive. I guess that's what people want.